They've been off for a while, but next month they'll be back. The new House of Commons will sit on December the 5th. Joining me now to talk about it and other political stories is our parliamentary reporter, Ray Filion. Ray, how much different will the feel be in Parliament this time around? I mean, Justin Trudeau's working on his new cabinet, right?
Absolutely. He's working on many things right now. His cabinet, but also the speech from the throne, which we learned this week that it'll be delivered on Thursday, December 5th. That's the day the House of Commons will resume its work in the nation's capital. That's when we're going to see the brand new Parliament sit for the first time. The first order of business, as is the case every time Parliament reconvenes after an election, will be to elect a new Speaker of the House of Commons. So MPs are going to take care of that in the morning of December 5th. And then in the afternoon, the government, the Trudeau minority government, is going to have its first big test with a presentation of the speech from the throne. As you know, I'm saying it's going to be a first major test for the minority government because that's going to be a question of confidence. The minority Liberal government is going to have the support from one of the three major opposition parties, either the Conservatives, the NDP, or the separatist Bloc Québécois. Otherwise, we could be in an election again. The government might fall, but no one here thinks that's going to happen.
Right, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau held meetings with each opposition party leader this week. Was there much of a reconciliation between the leaders, including Scheer and Trudeau?
Sounds like there was. Mr. Scheer was the first opposition leader to have his meeting with the Prime Minister on Tuesday morning. He said he was disappointed that Justin Trudeau didn't call the House sooner. The Conservative leader wanted the House to start sitting on November 25th. And as we said a couple of minutes ago, Mr. Trudeau decided to wait 10 extra days for that. But yeah, by all accounts, it went well. All parties have said that the Prime Minister is willing to cooperate with the other parties across the aisle. Mr. Trudeau also met the next day with Yves-François Blanchet, the leader of the Bloc Québécois. The Bloc leader said after his meeting that he doesn't think that the speech from the throne is going to be a problem. He thinks it's going to pass. Jagmeet Singh said he had basically three demands for the Prime Minister, three things he hopes to see in the speech from the throne on December 5th. A timeline for the creation of a national pharmacare plan. He's been talking about that for years. An openness to public dental coverage. And he also wants the government to drop its decision to appeal a Human Rights Commission ruling that recently ordered Ottawa to compensate children who were wrongfully placed in foster care. He says there's a willingness on the part of Justin Trudeau to act on those three things. It remains to be seen, of course, if that's going to be the case on December 5th. Jagmeet Singh surprised a lot of people. He made some people laugh by saying that he's willing to topple the government. But nobody thinks that's going to happen. Of course, the NDP doesn't have a lot of money right now, by all accounts, in its coffers. They're a weakened party as well. They're now in fourth place in the House of Commons. So by all accounts, it looks like the speech from the throne is just a formality. It should have the support from one of the three main opposition parties.
Now, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe met with Trudeau as well recently, and apparently things did not really go very well. Tell me more about that.
No, it sounds like it was a tense meeting between Justin Trudeau and Scott Moe, the Premier of Saskatchewan. He came to Ottawa asking for several things, including, and chief among them, that Ottawa put its much maligned carbon tax on the shelves for a year. Of course, Justin Trudeau wasn't going to say yes to that. So Scott Moe, after the meeting, met with reporters, and he said he was very disappointed that nothing's changed, in his words, that Justin Trudeau hasn't changed anything to his attitude. He claims that the Prime Minister didn't get the message that voters, especially those in Western Canada, who didn't elect a single Liberal MP in his province and in Alberta, sent to the Prime Minister. So yeah, it looks like the relationship between Premier Moe and the Prime Minister is not going well right now, is the least we can say. Premier Moe, after his meeting, told reporters that he's not excluding the possibility of doing what Jason Kenney has talked about doing for a while, which is to hold a provincial referendum on equalization. It remains to see, obviously, if that'll be the case and what that would achieve in the grand scheme of things.
Ray, some good news for those in our energy sector. Justin Trudeau is open to changing Bill C-69, or as Alberta Premier Jason Kenney refers to it, the No More Pipelines Bill.
That's right. This is something that surprised some people. It was included in the readout following the Prime Minister's meeting with Premier Scott Moe, and it says the following. I'm going to quote from it here. The Prime Minister invited Premier Moe to provide suggestions for improvements to the Impact Assessment Act, Bill C-59. 69, pardon me. Some people saw that as news, but I got to tell you, someone who's been covering Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister for 4 years now, he tends to always say that. Whenever we ask him, are you open to do this? Are you open to change that? His answer is always the same. If people have suggestions, I'm willing to listen to them. But in the end, they almost never change. So what I'm saying to those people across Canada who didn't like Bill C-69, don't hold your breath. I personally don't think it's going to change.
Yeah, it's not good news for us here, definitely in Alberta. Now, the Bloc leader aspiring with Alberta Premier Jason Kenney, let me guess, it may have something to do with pipelines and equalization payments?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, after his meeting with the Prime Minister, some reporters asked the separatist leader of the Bloc Québécois if he's willing to support Wexit, the movement in Western Canada. He says he doesn't want to support that cause because it wouldn't lead, in his view, to the creation of a green country. It would lead, he said, to the creation of a country that relies on pipelines, on oil and gas. And of course, that's something that didn't sit well at all with Premier Jason Kenney, who fired back at Mr. Blanchet, saying essentially that Quebec has two choices. Either it supports pipelines, it supports the oil and gas sector, or it should say goodbye to equalization payments. And I think Quebec is in line to receive something like $12 billion from the equalization program this year. Andrew Scheer also added his voice to the whole thing the following day by issuing a press release which said, and I quote, Mr. Blanchet's comments toward Western Canada were both insulting and completely disingenuous. Insulting because he accused Westerners of faking a unity crisis when the frustration and anxiety out west is all too real, and disingenuous because he refuses to acknowledge how much his province has benefited from the West's economic success. His hypocrisy and double standard are astounding, says the Conservative leader. So the least we can say, Hal, is that the leader of the Bloc Québécois didn't make himself a lot of friends in Western Canada this week.
Is there talk about possibly reworking the equalization payments? Because here in Alberta, as you know, we're really struggling with our economy, still coming out of a recession. And in Quebec, there's a $4 billion surplus. And yet they're getting $12 billion. It makes no sense, Ray.
A lot of people say it doesn't make any sense given the fact that things have changed over in recent years. You know, the Alberta economy used to do super well. In Quebec, not so much. Now it's the other way around. So a lot of people are calling for the equalization program to be rethought, reworked. But the Prime Minister was clear over the past few months. The formula that was negotiated is here to stay until 2024. So no changes in that regard, I'm afraid.
You know, that is really adding to a lot of the divisions growing here in Canada, especially the regional divisions. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, there was a poll, the results of which were published by the Globe and Mail earlier this week. It's an Environics Institute poll that showed big differences between attitudes between Alberta and Quebec. Most people in Alberta saying the economy is priority number one, whereas in Quebec, where the economy is doing well, as I just said, the priority should be climate change and the environment. 25% of people in Quebec say they're concerned about finding or keeping a full-time job. In Alberta, 58% of respondents said they hold that view. So you see big regional differences here. Overall, across Canada, 24% of Canadians said the most important issue for them is climate change. 14% said it's the economy.
And you know what? I mean, if you don't have a job, you can't feed your family, you can't do anything, you can't even help with climate change initiatives. So yeah, you need money to live. So I can understand where a lot of Albertans, my fellow Albertans, are coming from. Now, the race for the Speaker of the House is on, Ray. Is former Green Party leader Elizabeth May in the running? She expressed a little bit of interest there.
Not this time around. She said she might be a candidate after the next federal election if she's reelected, of course. No, this time around, Jeff Reagan, who has been a speaker for the past 4 years, is going to offer again. What's interesting is to be a candidate, you don't have to put your name in a hat. You have to withdraw your name. So every single MP, all 338 of them, will be a candidate until they decide to withdraw their names. what we're hearing is that, well, Canadian press reported this week that aside from outgoing Speaker Jeff Reagan, 3 other MPs, all from Ontario, might be interested. Bruce Stanton, who is a Conservative member of Parliament, Anthony Rota, a Liberal MP from Northern Ontario, and Carol Hughes, a New Democrat, who also hails from Ontario. Usually, I got to say, when we have a minority parliament, MPs tend to prefer continuity. They like experience. So chances are good for Speaker Reagan to retain his job. And by the way, being Speaker of the House of Commons comes, Hal, with some interesting perks: a salary of about $255,000 a year,
Wow.
a villa in the Gatineau Hills, which is known as the farm, and also a private apartment next to Parliament. So yeah, interesting job, demanding job, a lot of pressure, but also some interesting perks.
Wait a minute, how much was, so Andrew Scheer was making that kind of coin before he became leader of the federal Conservatives?
Yep, $255,000 a year. Yep, he was Speaker of the House before becoming.
That's right. So what is he making now in comparison, like salary-wise?
Good question. I'd have to check that.
I wonder if he took a pay cut. Former Governor General David Johnston is proposing a new debate format for the next election.
Yeah, the former Governor General, as you know, Hal, was the chairman of the federal commission that was tasked with organizing 2 debates in the last election campaign, one in English, one in French. There was a lot of criticism after the debate in English because a lot of people thought that there were too many people on stage, 6 candidates, 6 party leaders, and also 5 moderators. So former Gigi Johnston said that future debates could be better if there were more of them, but featuring fewer leaders. He said that maybe we should focus on the main contenders, but obviously that's going to give way to a major debate. Where do you draw the line? Who should be in? Should the Green Party be allowed to take part in those debates? Don't forget, Maxime Bernier's party, the PPC, the People's Party of Canada, went to court to be included, to win the right to be included in those 2 debates that the commission organized. So here we go again. The debate about the leaders' debates is on once again.
Ray, has there been any talk of Maxime Bernier possibly shutting down the People's Party of Canada? I mean, he didn't win a seat. None of his candidates did in the last election.
There was a lot of speculation since the election that he was going to do just that, but he issued a letter to his supporters earlier this week saying he wants to continue. So it looks like the PPC is here to stay, Hal.
Wow. Now, a big story still being talked around the water coolers was Sportsnet firing Don Cherry after he said, "you people," in his poppy rant on Hockey Night in Canada. And Ray, apparently Mr. Cherry didn't find much support on Parliament Hill.
No, I tried to ask the Prime Minister. I tried to ask Justin Trudeau about it, but he wouldn't comment, although the Prime Minister did retweet some of the comments that were tweeted out by some of his MPs and cabinet ministers, including Harjit Sajjan, the Minister of National Defense, who said Don Cherry made comments that are wrong in describing Canadians' remembrance of our veterans. His remarks don't recognize the contribution of Canada's diverse communities. I hope we can turn this into a moment where we can learn about all who have served, wrote Mr. Sajjan. As far as I know, no one on Parliament Hill came to Mr. Cherry's defense. I haven't heard anyone say he should stay on his Coach's Corner segment. The Premier of Quebec, interestingly, was asked about it this week, and he said good riddance, because you'll recall that about 15 years ago, Don Cherry said some negative things about French-Canadian hockey players. So Mr. Legault said good riddance, bon débarras, as they say. So.
And I remember the way Don Cherry used to bungle some of the French-Canadian names. Paddy Roy, good Irish boy.
Yeah.
Instead of Patrick Roy, so I don't know.
That's right.
Our parliamentary reporter, Ray Filion, joining me once again from Ottawa. Thanks so much, Ray.
Always a pleasure, Hal.